Feminism. Let's talk about when it goes too far and it actually ends up backfiring on us. Hi, this is Michelle and welcome back to Call Me Crazy. Today is Friday, November 7th, 2025. So feminism, what is it that we're talking about? If you search the internet, you'll find 1,000 different definitions for feminism. There's many different schools of thought on this topic, but I don't want to get down into the weeds. I just tried to find like a very overall general definition of feminism. And I have here that feminism is a range of socio-political movements and ideologies that aim to define and establish the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the sexes. It goes on to say that the feminist movements have campaigned and continue to campaign for women's rights, including the right to vote, run for public office, work, earn equal pay, own property, receive education, enter into contracts, have equal rights within marriage, and maternity leave. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of these things. Women wanting to have equal opportunities and equal access to things within society, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think anybody would say that there's something wrong with that. But as with most things that we see nowadays and movements and causes that we see, things go too far and things get to a point where it's ridiculous. And that's what I want to talk about today. Feminism, for some people, has gone too far. They've taken it to a point where it's ridiculous. And they've actually taken it to a point where it's actually backfired and it's actually having the opposite effect of what was originally intended. So let's talk about that today. Good men have decided to stand down. What do I mean by this? So I'm going to use the pandemic as an example to illustrate what I'm talking about. Remember back when during COVID, 2020 to roughly 2021, 2022, everybody remembers that time. There were a lot of restrictions on what we could do. We couldn't go to certain restaurants. We couldn't go to certain stores, or if we did, there were a lot of restrictions. There was restrictions on our movements, restrictions on how and when we could go to work. You get the idea. Everybody remembers that. So what happened is there was a shift where people started to realize that, all those things that we were so desperate to do, maybe we don't need to do those things. We always wanted to go out to restaurants. We always wanted to go out to social events, but people started to realize that, we can start doing these things at home. It's not as essential as we really thought it was. We can start cooking our own meals. We can start watching Netflix instead of going to the movies. We can start having family gatherings instead of going out. You get the idea. Like, people started to have a shift. And also people and companies started to realize that, hey, we can have people work from home and we can actually save money. So there was a shift towards maybe all those things that we were so desperate to do, we don't necessarily have to do. We can now do these things from home and enjoy our homes more and work from home. And, we can adjust our lives accordingly. And I think after COVID, a lot of those things remain permanent because people started to realize that, hey, this isn't so bad. So all those restrictions that were placed on us actually forced us to shift our mindset. So this is has happened with men. So because women have become so, I don't need men, I can do it on my own, I'm independent, I don't need you, I can do everything by myself, don't approach me because you're creepy, you're a loser, you're this, you're that. You get the idea that women are so against men. Men have started to say, you know what? I think it's actually better when I'm by myself, because all those things that I thought I wanted a woman for, I can actually do it for myself. And, people will say, well, you can't have sex with yourself. That's true. But men started to realize that when I want sex, I can get it. And then all the other things that women have provided in the past, like taking care of the home and cooking and cleaning, I can either do that myself or I can pay someone to do it. So, hey, why was I so worried about having a woman around? Because not having a woman around is not so bad. It's actually kind of good. So good men are starting to shift to thinking that, why am I so worried about having a woman? I don't really need one around. This is actually better. And the exact opposite has actually happened for women, because for many, many years, women have said, I'm independent, I can do it on my own, I don't need men, I got this. And as the years have passed, women have started to reflect and say, you know what? Maybe I do need a man. Maybe I do need someone to ride out this life with, and maybe I do need some help. Maybe I can't do it all by myself. And you're starting to see this shift a little bit if you pay attention to social media and what's going on out there in the world. There is a shift where women are starting to say, hey, we've taken this being independent way too far, and now we're starting to realize that maybe we do need men and we want our men back. So men have actually stepped back and said, hey, maybe it's not so bad not having the women around. But the women are starting to say, hey, it is bad. We need to have the men around. Maybe we've been bamboozled. So there's an opposite between the men and the women. The men are starting to accept that maybe we don't need the women like we thought. And the women are starting to say, we thought we didn't need the men, but we actually do need them. So there's a conflict going on, and there's a shift going on, and I'm not sure what the end game is going to be. Women have lowered the price of sexual access. So let's talk about that. So when the feminist movement came around, a part of that was the idea that women should not have restrictions on sexual behavior or who they want to have sex with. And also it came along with reproductive rights and the birth control pill and all these things. So, and also the idea that a man can't tell me what to wear or how to dress. I can dress how I want and I can wear what I want. So along with this comes promiscuous women, because I'm going to do what I want to do and I'm going to have sex with who I want to have sex with. And if I get pregnant or anything happens, I have reproductive rights. I have the birth control pill, these types of things. And if I want to wear revealing clothing, if I want to go out half naked, I have the right to do that, and no one can tell me what to do. So this is the mindset that came along with the feminist, or one of the things that came along with the feminist movement is this idea of sexual access. And what it has resulted in is that now men have access to sex way more than they did in the past, because women are now, quote unquote, sexually liberated, and they can have sex when and how and who they want to with. So now the price of sex is lower. If you go back, let's say 100 years, it was kind of understood that if a man wanted consistent sex, he had to get married, and he had to, make a woman his wife so he could have access to consistent sex. We all know that's not the case anymore, not even close. All you got to do is download an app on your phone, click a few times, and you can have sex by tonight. We all know that's how it works now. So now men have realized that the price of sex is so low that I can have it anytime I want. This has actually backfired, because women have become so promiscuous in their younger years, and when they get older and they want to find a high quality man, or a man that's going to marry them, now the man is saying, hey, I don't want you because you've been around the block too many times. And also, men have access to so much sex. So why am I going to make you my wife when I could have sex anytime I want? It's like the idea of getting married to have sex is no longer. The incentive for men to settle down and get married has become less and less and less and less. Really, the only reason nowadays, in my opinion, why men really want to get married is to have children. If a man really doesn't desire children, the incentive for him to get married is almost non-existent. So this is something I've really seen a lot, where women will demonize men while simultaneously enjoying the comforts and the luxuries that men have built. So I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was, they say if you look outside your window, chances are anything that you look at was built by a man. So let's think about what we enjoy in general. I mean, I can't speak for around the world, but I'm sure it's probably the same around the world. But let's just look at the United States. The roads, the internet, the electricity, the water, the sewer systems, the buildings, anything you can think of that involves infrastructure, that involves safety, the police department, the fire department, the FBI, the whomever you can think of. The majority of these things are built by men. I mean, I know women will go to their death saying that women can do these jobs too. But let's be real, 90% of these jobs are done by men, and very, 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 very few women actually want to do these kind of jobs. I mean, it's reflected in the numbers. If you see a project going on the roadside, how many women do you really see? You might see one or two if you're lucky, but 99.9% are going to be men. So the men are out there doing these jobs. They're building the roads, they're building the buildings, they're doing the dangerous jobs, they're building the electric plants, they are keeping the city safe, the police, the firemen. All of these things women benefit from. And these are luxuries and comforts that women benefit from. But simultaneously, they will demonize men and say that they're terrible. So to me, this is a hypocrisy. Women don't realize that there are imbalances on both sides, and trying to only fix one side creates more imbalances. So what do I mean? There are imbalances on both sides for both sexes. So let's say if you go look historically, men haven't usually had maternity leave or paternity leave. This is only a recent phenomenon we've seen maybe in the last 20 years. But historically, men have not had paternity leave. So that's an imbalance for men. Historically, men, when there's a divorce, they typically have the biggest financial burden. That's an imbalance for men. If you look historically, men typically are worse off after a divorce. That's an imbalance for men. Historically, men usually don't get the children after a divorce. That's an imbalance for men. Historically, when there's a domestic dispute, men are assumed to be the aggressor. In almost all cases, it's assumed that the man is the aggressor. That's an imbalance for men. So just those few examples, you can see that there's imbalances for men as well. Now, when the women come along and they say, well, we want the imbalances that don't benefit us, we want to fix those. So now you've created new imbalances, if that makes sense. So in order for us to fix any issues that there are between the sexes, we have to fix it on both sides, not just the ones that benefit the women. Because when you do that, you're actually creating more imbalances. So I hope you get the idea. Feminism actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, what I mean by that is this kind of ties into a previous point that I spoke about when I talked about COVID as an example. So when women have this mantra that I'm okay by myself, I don't need men, I got this, I'm independent, I don't need a man to take care of me, etc., etc. What ends up happening is men hear this message loud and clear and they stay away because you're saying you don't need us. So why am I even bothering with you? So men stay away. And then as the years go on and on and on, the women are looking around and they're saying, well, I want to get into a relationship, and maybe I do want to settle down with somebody, and the men have left the room. So now it becomes, where there's no good men out there. Where have they all gone? And it's actually a self-fulfilling thing, because now you have created your own reality. The men have left the room and you've actually created it yourself. Women have no interest in a soft, vulnerable man. Now, I heard someone say once that if you're a man and you want to instantly and permanently kill any attraction that your girlfriend or your wife has for you, try this as an experiment. Come home from work one day and sit on the couch and say, man, I have had the roughest day. I've just had a lot of issues I had to deal with today. I've just had it. I'm stressed out, and then just burst out crying and just start crying and just sniffling, and you get the idea. Just break down crying and have your woman sitting next to you while you're doing this. She will instantly lose all attraction for you. So why am I using this example? When you think about feminism, one of the things that women will say is that, men are so tough, and they just don't have emotions, and they can't be soft, and they can't be vulnerable. Why can't they just show their feelings and be vulnerable? This is a bunch of crap. Women say this, but in reality, in the real world, when men do this, they absolutely hate it. So this is kind of like that self-fulfilling thing that I'm talking about, where women will say, I just want a man who's going to be vulnerable, who's going to show his feelings and, be like my girlfriends. No, the minute a man does that, you're going to instantly be turned off. And any woman who denies this is delusional. So let's be real, ladies. We say we want our men to do this, but we really don't. The minute a man does that, we're instantly turned off. So what's the solution, ladies? Now, I'm not saying that feminism in and of itself is a bad thing. I'm saying that some people have taken it too far. They've taken it to an extreme where now men are the enemy. Men are bad, men are terrible. There's nothing wrong with wanting certain things as a woman and having your independence and making your own money and making your own decisions. There is nothing wrong with that. But men add value to our lives, whether we want to admit it or not, because if you think about it, if all the men disappeared, us women, we'd have a pretty hard time, let's be honest. So men do have a place. Men have value. Men have a lot of value. And men provide a lot of the things that we enjoy every day in life. So let's not take it so far to the point where we think that we are superior to men, because a lot of women do have that mindset that they're better than men, and men don't have any place, and men are terrible and men are awful. Let's not take it that far. We both contribute equally, but in different ways. And let's acknowledge the value that men and women bring to the table, but just in different ways. So let's embrace the good things and try not to take things too far. And so thank you guys for listening today. And I'm still trying to move towards my goal of having 500 subscribers by the end of the year. So thank you everybody who has subscribed and who's listened to the videos. Thank you so much. And I'm trying to move towards my goal. Hopefully I can get there. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.